Officer Daniel Brooks was the kind of police officer everyone in town knew and respected. He wasn't just a cop, he was a symbol of dedication and courage. Standing tall with sharp brown eyes and a calm demeanor, Daniel always stayed composed, even in the most chaotic situations. He had been with the police force for over a decade and had formed an unbreakable bond with his K-9 partner, Max, a highly trained German shepherd. Max wasn't just his partner, he was his family, his protector, and his best friend. It was a quiet evening, and the small town seemed peaceful under the golden hues of the setting sun. Daniel and Max were on their usual patrol route, driving through the outskirts of town, where the streets met open fields. This area, though beautiful, was known for occasional trouble from drifters or small gangs passing through. As they drove past an old, abandoned gas station, Daniel noticed a group of men loitering near the entrance. Something about their body language felt off. Tense, restless, almost predatory. Daniel decided to check it out. He parked his car a short distance away, leaving Max inside but ready. Max's sharp eyes followed Daniel as he stepped out, his ears twitching, sensing something unusual. The group of men, 5 in total, turned their attention to Daniel as he approached. Their leader, a burly man with a scar running down his cheek, smirked as Daniel introduced himself and asked if everything was all right. Instead of answering, the leader spat on the ground and sneered, "What's a lone cop like you gonna do out here? You should mind your own business." Daniel's instincts screamed danger, but he remained calm. "I'm just here to make sure everyone's safe. If there's no issue, you're free to move along," he said firmly. The men exchanged glances and then suddenly surrounded Daniel. "You think you can just walk up to us and tell us what to do?" Another man growled. Before Daniel could respond, the leader lunged at him, followed by the others. The fight was brutal. The men punched, kicked, and knocked Daniel to the ground. He tried to defend himself, but their sheer numbers overwhelmed him. Blood trickled down his face, and pain shot through his ribs as he struggled to get up. Through the haze of pain, he managed to press a button on his belt, a silent signal to Max. Inside the patrol car, Max's ears perked up. The moment he heard the signal, he leapt into action. The door of the car, designed to release on command, swung open, and Max bolted toward the scene. One of the attackers noticed the dog charging at full speed and yelled, "Watch out, the dog!" But it was too late. Max launched himself at the leader, knocking him to the ground. The others tried to grab Max, but the dog was too fast, darting between them, growling fiercely. His sharp teeth and powerful body made him a formidable force. The tide of the fight turned instantly. Max's presence gave Daniel a chance to recover. With Max guarding him, Daniel managed to call for backup on his radio while fending off the remaining attackers. As the chaos subsided, Daniel noticed something familiar about the leader. Despite the blood and bruises, he recognized the man's scarred face. It was Victor Kane, a former gang member Daniel had arrested years ago for a violent crime. Victor had vowed revenge back then, and it seemed he had kept his promise. Victor smirked, even as he sat handcuffed on the ground. "You think this is over, officer? I've got friends. You'll never be safe." Daniel's heart sank, not out of fear for himself, but for Max and his loved ones. He knew men like Victor didn't give up easily. As Daniel was processing Victor's words, he noticed Max limping. Panic surged through him as he knelt beside his partner. Max had been stabbed during the fight, but he hadn't let it slow him down. Daniel's voice trembled as he reassured Max. "You're going to be okay, buddy. Just hold on." Backup arrived, and the attackers were taken into custody. But Daniel's focus was on Max. He rushed his partner to the nearest veterinary hospital, praying silently. The wait was agonizing, every minute feeling like an eternity. The vet finally came out and smiled. "Max is a fighter. He's going to be fine." Relief washed over Daniel, and for the first time that night, he allowed himself to breathe. A week later, Daniel and Max were back on patrol. The bond between them was stronger than ever. The town held a small ceremony to honor Max's bravery, and Daniel couldn't have been prouder. As he stood there, watching Max bask in the attention, he realized something profound. No matter how dark the night, Having a loyal partner by your side could make all the difference. Victor Kane and his men faced justice, and the streets felt a little safer. But for Daniel, the real victory was knowing he wasn't alone. With Max by his side, he could face anything. Days turned into weeks, and life returned to normal, or so it seemed. Daniel and Max continued their patrols, and the bond they shared grew deeper. But Victor Kane's words still lingered in Daniel's mind, like a dark shadow he couldn't shake. One evening, Daniel received a message from the precinct. A large shipment of illegal weapons had been intercepted, and intelligence pointed to Victor's gang being involved. Although Victor was behind bars, it seemed his influence extended far beyond the prison walls. "Looks like Victor wasn't bluffing about having friends," Daniel muttered to Max as they prepared for their shift. Max tilted his head, his intelligent eyes seeming to understand every word. The assignment was high stakes. The intercepted shipment was just the tip of the iceberg. The department suspected there was a larger operation at play, and they needed to act fast to prevent the weapons from flooding the streets. Daniel and Max were assigned to work with a task force to uncover the truth. The investigation led Daniel and Max to an industrial warehouse on the outskirts of town. The place was eerily quiet, the air heavy with tension. Daniel's instincts were on high alert as they approached the building. Max walked beside him, his movements precise and focused. Inside the warehouse, they found evidence of the operation, crates filled with weapons and documents detailing shipments. But as they were documenting the scene, Daniel heard the faint sound of footsteps. Before he could react, a group of armed men emerged from the shadows. They were well organized, and their leader, a cold-eyed man named Lucas, stepped forward. "You should have stayed out of this, Officer Brooks," he said, his voice laced with menace. Daniel and Max were outnumbered, but they refused to back down. The men advanced, and chaos erupted. Daniel used every ounce of his training to defend himself, while Max lunged at the attackers, his growls echoing through the warehouse. Despite their bravery, the odds were against them. Daniel was cornered, and Max was struggling to fend off multiple attackers. Just when it seemed like all hope was lost, a voice crackled over Daniel's radio. Backup was on the way. As the fight intensified, one of the attackers suddenly hesitated. He turned to the leader, Lucas, and said, "I didn't sign up for this. We're not supposed to kill cops." Lucas glared at him. "Then leave. We don't need cowards." The man looked at Daniel and Max, then dropped his weapon and ran. His decision created a momentary distraction, allowing Daniel to regain his footing. When the backup arrived, the remaining attackers were subdued. Lucas was arrested, and the operation was dismantled. Back at the precinct, Daniel reviewed the evidence they had collected. To his surprise, the documents contained a list of names, individuals involved in the operation, including one name that stood out, Victor Kane's brother, Michael. Daniel realized the operation wasn't just about weapons. It was a personal vendetta. Michael had been orchestrating everything from the shadows, seeking revenge for Victor's imprisonment. The discovery led to a series of raids, dismantling the network Michael had built. Both Victor and Michael were charged with additional crimes, ensuring they wouldn't be a threat for a long time. As for Daniel and Max, their bond was unshakable. The town honored them once again, this time with a heartfelt ceremony that brought tears to many eyes. Daniel looked down at Max, who wagged his tail proudly. "We've been through a lot, buddy," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "But as long as we've got each other, we can handle anything." Max barked in agreement, and the crowd erupted in applause. From that day forward, Daniel and Max became symbols of hope and resilience in their town. They continued to serve with the same dedication and courage, knowing that together they could overcome any challenge. Their story wasn't just about bravery. It was about trust, loyalty, and the unbreakable bond between a man and his dog. And as they patrolled the streets side by side, they reminded everyone that even in the darkest moments, there's always a light to guide the way. That's the story, friends. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a pleasure sharing it with you all. Don't forget to comment below and let me know where you're watching from. It's always fun to see the global reach of these stories. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button for more amazing stories, tips, and tricks. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.